Hello and greeting, the Baha'i greeting of Allah to all the Baha'is of the world, especially the North American and Canadians, that I am one of them. My name is Abbas Tamori. These are the series of speeches and talks that reintroduce the Baha'i Faith to the North Americans as a part of my mission from Baha'u'llah, sort of reconstruction of the Baha'i Faith, to open the door for others to be able to see things and maybe they develop their own views. But before everything else, I have to say that this has been done, this series, or been decided essentially by the International Institution of Guardianship that was incorporated at 2002, May 2002. And I am the president and in charge of the affairs. This program, this particular speech, which is kind of an introduction, a foreword you may call it, it's about to tell you what is the legitimacy of such organization and who we are and what's going on as far as the Baha'i Faith concerns regarding this matter. We'll try to bring you some of the holy text regarding this issue. To define the covenant of the Baha'i Faith, you all know, and the non-Baha'is as well should know, that there are four infallible individuals in the Baha'i Faith, beginning in 1844 with the appearance of the Bab, who was the forerunner of Baha'u'llah and one of his elders, that essentially developed the situation for coming of the Baha'u'llah. And Baha'u'llah, glory of God, manifestations of God that has been promised in all the religions of the past, and the founder of the Baha'i Faith. And after him, of course, is Abdu'l, the greatest branch, the master we call him, who is the infallible interpreter of the writing of Baha'u'llah. And immediately after him, the grandson of Abdu'l, Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the cause of God, the infallible guardian of the cause of God. Be very careful when we're talking about Shoghi Effendi, because he is the one that Abdu'l in the Will and Testament calls him infallible, the holy branch of both the House of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. He is one of the greatest characters in the religions of all the religions. Since he was not imprisoned and he had a bit of free time, he has manifested that divine power. So, besides these four infallible individuals, there are also two institutions. You know the Universal House of Justice that was erected in 1963 by the hands of the cause of God in Israel. And there is another institution that the Baha'is, they don't accept it right now. Many of them haven't heard about it. It's called the Universal House of Guardianship, which is being taken care of at 2002 by the Elders of God, a forum of three of them. And they have created this International Institution of Guardianship as the first phase, and ultimately will end up by the elections of 5 women from among the Baha'is of the world, who would be called the International Institution of Guardianship. So, but how these things are working and where are we coming with these ideas, I have to bring you back the fact that in 1957, when Shoghi Effendi died, passed away, ascended to the Abha kingdom, he had 27 hands of the cause or personal assistant to take the affair of the Baha'is. And they looked and searched everywhere, and they said he has no successor. So, but this was a very painful situation for them when the Baha'is, they found that there is no successor, is because of the writing of Abdu'l Baha in the Will and Testament, which I'm going to read it for you. In the page 8 of the Will and Testament of Abdu'l Baha, this is what Abdu'l Baha says. Quote, "It is incumbent upon the guardian of the cause of God to appoint in his own lifetime him that shall become his successor, which differences may not arise after his passing." This is in the Baha'i Administration, page 8. This is the writing of Shoghi Effendi, translation of Shoghi Effendi of the word of Abdu'l Baha. So based on this, Shoghi Effendi, which is the guardian of the cause of God, has to appoint somebody after him to succeed him, but there was nobody. And Abdu'l Baha says if this is not happening, then differences will arise among the Baha'is. Baha'is will be divided over this issue. And this was a painful matter for the hands of the cause because they didn't know what to say about it. But they were very smart. They said there's nothing in the writing to say that we, as a hand of the cause, are infallible. Therefore, we can't do it. And we can answer it. What we will do, though, we will ask all the Baha'is, following the 10 years plan of Shoghi Effendi, at the end of the 10 years plan, to create, by the vote, as it was written in all the books of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l Baha and Shoghi Effendi, all the Baha'is in the world, elect 9 people at the World Center in Haifa, Holy Land, and that is the Universal House of Justice, which according to the writing, it is infallible. So Universal House of Justice is infallible. Elected 9 people with all the Baha'is of the world democratically. So hand of the cause, they said, since we're not infallible and the Universal House of Justice is infallible, why don't we elect the Universal House of Justice and let them to answer these questions rather than us? Well, Universal House of Justice was formed in 1963, and this is what they said about the issue. Quote, "After prayerful and careful study of the holy text bearing upon the questions of the appointment of the successor to Shoghi Effendi as the guardian of the cause of God, and after prolonged consultation, which included considerations of the views of the hands of the cause of God residing in Holy Land, the Universal House of Justice finds that there is no way to appoint or to legislate to make it possible to appoint a second guardian to succeed Shoghi Effendi." This is in the book called Covenant, the booklet, page 19. So Universal House of Justice says that we can't do it. Essentially in the Baha'i writing, it's very clearly, so I'm going to bring the quotation to you. There are 2 pillars that constitute the world order of Baha'u'llah. One is the Universal House of Guardianship, and the other one is Universal House of Justice. Universal House of Justice legislate the new laws, whatever Baha'u'llah did not enact purposely. They can bring new laws. But, this is very essential, they are forbidden. It is forbidden for Universal House of Justice to interpret the writing. It's very amazing. But they cannot do that. This is one of the restrictions upon them. There are actually 3 restrictions. The second one is they cannot interfere and infringe upon the institutions of the Universal House of Guardianship. Under no circumstances they cannot interfere it. They run parallel to each other. And the third one, is that they cannot cancel or provoke or revoke, actually, the laws of Baha'u'llah. They cannot do that. They cannot go outside of the faith, their writings. But the main thing is that they cannot interpret and they cannot infringe upon the institution of the guardianship. Therefore, they said we can't do it. All right. So, first of all, Shoghi Effendi didn't have a successor. Secondly, the Universal House of Justice said they cannot do it either. So, some of the Baha'is, they tried to find an answer for this. One of them was Mason Rimi. Mason Rimi, by the way, was one of the hands of the cause, one of those 27 personal assistants to Shoghi Effendi. Ironically, he was one of the 9 people elected by the hands of the cause. Out of 27, they elected 9 people among themselves. He was one of them. To go find out if there is any writing pertaining to the guardianship successor to Shoghi Effendi, and he, as one of them, they said that there's nothing to indicate that. But this fellow, hands of the cause, he decided to say that he is the guardian of the cause of God, or at least that's what's been told everywhere in their website and other places, in order to save the situation, probably, he thought. But his claim was absolutely wrong, and it was rejected. Why is that? Because we're not using your logic, we're just going directly with the text. He was called hands of the cause of God. Therefore, he cannot self-promote himself to something else. You see? This is what happened to Azal too, who came after the Bab. And then he objected that Baha'u'llah, you should not be there because Bab was just a prophet, came, and you can't be just coming so fast. His is also not accepted because Bab called him, you're the chief of the Babi. That means you can't be more than what I told you you are. And Mason Rimi did the same mistake. He did not understood. When Shoghi Effendi called him hands of the cause, he's restricted to be the hands of the cause, and he cannot promote himself to any degree higher, to call himself the guardian of the cause. Because if you're the guardian, then you are chief of all the hands of the cause. They all have to obey you. And how could you self-promote yourself? Number one. Number two, in the Will and Testament of Abdu'l Baha, clearly he says, the hands of the cause of God, they have the power to deal with any situation that is going to be injurious to the cause of God, even if such claim comes from one of themselves. That is, if a hand of causes says something, other hands of the causes, if they don't accept it, he has to put his claim aside. And hands of the cause of God, they told him that we cannot accept your claim, because you are not of the lineage of Shoghi Effendi, because you're hands of the cause, you can't promote yourself to anything else. We understand you're trying to solve the problem, but you're going wrong way about it. Okay? He didn't accept. Of course, he was, excommunicated, rightfully so. I don't know what was his intention, only Baha'u'llah knows. But his solution was not according to the writing of the Book of God. He had to be going. I remember when I was myself in Iran, when Muslims, they were asking me, how come there's no second guardian after Shoghi Effendi, and the guardianship is done, and what are you saying, to this and that? And I used to always tell them that there are 2 pillars, Universal House of Justice and guardianship. Universal House of Justice existing in 1963, elected. Your question is about the guardianship. The guardianship is remaining to be the writing of the Shoghi Effendi and Abdu'l Baha. What's a guardian doing? Interpretations. Okay, those interpretations of Shoghi Effendi and Abdu'l Baha is available right now. Therefore, that is the second pillar forever. We don't need a second pillar in a form of a man, a body, something like Shoghi Effendi. Another guardian. But unfortunately, this might be an answer today probably used by everybody else, but it does not answer a lot of other questions. Like, for example, why does then Shoghi Effendi talks about the future guardians? He himself had no son, but he says there are future guardians. And guardians, not even just one. So this is one of the things. Why would he say that? The other thing is that he talks about institution of guardianship and even a building to be called the House of Guardianships. I'm going to explain this thing to you more. So I studied. I came to Kelowna in 1993. I had a vision of Abdu'l Baha. He called me one of the elders. I tried to talk in the vision that I had. He actually scolded me and he said, just do something about it, in a scolding way. I didn't understand what he means. But when I went to Prince George in 1994, 1995, I brought a couple of other friends of mine. Within the discussion as it goes, I tried to write a letter to Universal House of Justice. I don't know, my hand went some way. I was going to write something else and it ended up being something else. But the letter basically is finished. I looked at it, reviewed it over and over, and I found that the answer is there. I solved the problem. So what do we do? I found out that the Baha'i Faith is not finished yet. You know, when Bob came, Baha'i Faith was just a start, it was not finished. Baha'u'llah had to come. When Baha'u'llah comes, Baha'i Faith was not finished yet, because Abdu'l had to come to interpret. And every time a new one comes, some people would, fight back. When Abdu'l comes, Baha'i Faith was not finished. Shobi Effendi had to come. Of course, when he comes again, some people repudiated him. A lot of people. So Shobi Effendi passed away, dies. They start repudiation, including Masonry, I just said, because Universal House of Justice had to come. And once the Universal House of Justice come, is it finished? Not really. There had to be Universal House of Guardianship as well. Once the Universal House of Guardianship is formed, the formative age in the Baha'i Faith is right now commenced, but it will be done by then. So, where am I getting these ideas from? It is in the writing of Abdu'l in the book called Some Answered Questions, which brings me to my number 3 note here. In the Some Answered Questions, page 57, quotations of Abdu'l. Quote, in each cycle, the guardians and the holy soul. Please pay attention, my dear friends. He uses the word guardians with the S, capital. I'm going to repeat the quote from the beginning. In each cycle, the guardians and the holy souls have been 12. So Jacob had 12 sons. In the time of Moses, there were 12 heads of chiefs of the tribes. In the time of Christ, there were 12 apostles. And in the time of Muhammad, there were 12 imams. But in this glorious manifestation, there are 24. Double the number of all others. For the greatness of this manifestation requires it. These holy souls are in the presence of God, seated on their own throne, meaning that they reign eternally. So, there are 24 guardians. Shogi Effendi is the guardian of the cause of God. But in this here, it says there are 24. They ask Abdu'l, who are these guardians? Abdu'l says the Bab and 18 letters of living, which Bab had 18 disciples. The 18 letters of living makes 19 of them. Therefore, they become 24. And he says 19, and he says 5 others will come in future. But that is in Persian, it's not translated. I'm going to use a quotation from Shogi Effendi stating the same fact. That's in Light of Guidance, page 509. This is what Shogi Effendi says. Regarding the 24 elders, the master in a tablet stated that they are the Bab, the 18 letters of living, and the 5 others who would be known in future. So far, we do not know who these 5 others are. Light of Guidance, page 509. So, Shogi Effendi says, as master, which is Abdu'l is stated, 18 letters of the living and the Bab makes 19, and 5 will come in future. But he says, I do not know who they are, Shogi Effendi. Otherwise, I would have told you. And he doesn't say he's one of them. Because if he's one of them, therefore we needed 4. But he says 5 others. That means I am not one of them. Good. So we know so far there are 5 elders to become. And these are very special people. We have to follow the quotations of Abdu'l, bringing back to you what I said. He calls them holy souls. He calls them guardians. He says they sit on their own throne, they reign eternally, they're the great personalities. So these 5 has to come. I said, gosh, Muslims and all the religions are waiting for one. In this religion there's 5 others. And some people say, oh no, this is a reference to the future manifestations, the future. No. The quotations, that is the requirement of this religion. It's a part of the Baha'i Faith. Okay? Even some people say that they could be hand of the cause or this or that. Even Universal House of Justice says, no, do not apply the word guardian to anybody else. So when I saw there are 5 of them are coming, I'm reading, myself, the writing of Shoghi Effendi in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, and I see that he's talking about future guardians. I said to myself, when he's talking, I just read it for you, that 24 elders and 5 of them they will come. That means elders are the guardians. Also, we can be called guardians. Why? Because Shoghi Effendi says they're future guardians. But then he says 5 elders will come in future. But these elders, by Abdu'l Baha, called guardian. So Abdu'l Baha says there are 5 guardians coming, or elder. Shoghi Effendi says 5 elder, which are the same guardians, as Abdu'l Baha says. Reference is the same 5 remaining. And it coincides exactly what Shoghi Effendi says, that there are future guardians. All of a sudden, matter is clear. These future guardians of the faith that Abdu'l Baha, as Shoghi Effendi refers to, are these elders. Why? Because in the quotations of Abdu'l Baha, he calls them the guardians. He says there are 24 guardians, including those 5 that had to come. Very good. The matter is so far clear that we Baha'is have to be waiting the coming of 5 elders or 5 guardians, that they have to come in future. So, what are they supposed to do? What is their duty? Shoghi Effendi says, let me bring my quotation number 4. He says their job is interpretation of the writings, but they are essentially ordinary people. He says that. So that quotations, I don't think I have it here at the moment. Yes. All right. That's what here it says. Quote. It's in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 151. The fact that the guardian has been specifically endowed with such power as he may need to reveal the purport and disclose the importance of the utterances, implications of the utterances of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l Baha, does not necessarily confer upon him a station co-equal with those whose word he is called upon to interpret. He can exercise that right and discharge this application and yet remain infinitely inferior to both of them in rank and different in nature. Okay, the integrity of this cardinal principle of our faith, the word and the deed of the present and the future guardians must abundantly testifies. There you go. He refers to the future guardians and he says the future guardians, they do interpret the writing. That is their job. This is their specialty. Nobody else can do that. But they're just ordinary people. He goes beyond that. He says that they could be infinitely inferior. Infinitely inferior. Even an ant is not infinitely inferior than Abdu'l Baha. Surely no Baha'i in the world is infinitely inferior than Abdu'l Baha. I don't know, could you say an electron is infinitely inferior than Abdu'l Baha? I don't know what could be infinitely inferior than Abdu'l Baha. This is telling us that don't bug these elders, Shoghi Effendi says. If they can't do their jobs and they're doing, and there's a way for you to understand that they are functioning to their jobs, leave them alone. Don't get into their personal life. So far we found out these 5s, what are they doing? They're ordinary people. They shouldn't be, going to anything more than that, to ask of them anything more than that, miracle or anything. But they can interpret the writing. All right. Now the new question that would arise in my head, what is left to interpret? What is it left to interpret? Okay? Which brings me to these quotations again. In the World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 148. Quotation of Shoghi Effendi. An attempt, I feel, should at the present juncture should be made to explain the characters and the functions of these twin pillars that support this mighty administrative structure, the institution of guardianship and of the Universal House of Justice. To describe in their entirety the diverse elements that function in conjunction with this institution is beyond the scope and the purpose of these general expositions of the fundamental verities of the faith. To define with accuracy and minuteness the features and to analyze exhaustively the nature of the relationship which, on the one hand, bind together these two fundamental organs of the will of Abdu'l Baha and connect on the other each of them to the author of the faith and the center of his covenant is a task which future generation will no doubt adequately fulfill. Page 148, World Order of Baha'u'llah. My dear friend, you go to it and you see if I'm right. He says, the relationship of Universal House of Justice and Universal House of Guardianship has not been explained fully. I haven't finished it, he says. And he says each one of these institutions, their relationships to Abdu'l Baha and to Baha'u'llah is not clear. So at the present time we don't know what is the relationship, fully explaining it. What is the relationship of Universal House of Justice to Abdu'l Baha, to Baha'u'llah, and to the institution of guardianship? I'm reading it again to see this part of it at least, so you see it. He says, to define with accuracy and minuteness the features and to analyze exhaustively the nature of the relationship which, on one hand, bind together these two fundamental organs of the will of Abdu'l Baha and connect on the other, each of them to the author of the faith and the center of his covenant, is a task which future generation will no doubt adequately fulfill. Okay, who are these future generations? If you say they are the Universal House of Justice, I already told you Universal House of Justice is forbidden to interpret. Alright. Could it be normal Baha'is? No, in the Baha'i Faith is forbidden, completely forbidden for any Baha'i to interpret the writing. Not allowed. We have to take the writing as they are, no interpretations. So, who is to be interpreting? Guess what? The 5 elders, the future guardians, which he just said. They are sharing with Abdu'l Baha the power of interpretation, the responsibility of interpretation. Although they're ordinary people, they're not equal to Abdu'l Baha, but they can do the job. So all of a sudden, we find out that not only 5 people have to come, not only they are the guardians, but they are interpreter, and there are things to interpret. According to this very clear text, we don't know what the relationship of Universal House of Justice is to Center of Covenant with Abdu'l Baha and to the author of the faith, which is Baha'u'llah. We don't know that. Okay. So, now, we'll go further. Shoghi Effendi goes further. He says, actually, there has to be a building, a physical building to be erected, which is called the center for the interpretations. Let's see if I can find that one. right here. This is in a book that was printed in 1992. It's called Tawqi'at Mubarakeh. It's in Persian, unfortunately. It's been printed at Baha'i Verlag, okay, which contains the messages of Shawqi Effendi from 1888 to 113 years of the Baha'i calendar, okay, and in page 562. Ask any Persian Baha'is, if you like, to go to the Baha'i Reference Library.org, under the writing of Shawqi Effendi, the very first book on the top is this book. And let them go to page 562 and translate it for you, because this is its translation that I have translated it for you. He orders in this tablet there has to be 5 buildings built, which recently was done a few years ago. He says, well, the first one is the house of the seat of the Universal House of Justice. We know that. Then it is the Baha'i archive, which he says has been under construction, which, you know, at his time was done. Then he talks about the third one. He says, at the precinct of these 2 lofty buildings, which is Baha'i archive and the seat of Universal House of Justice, and these 2 mighty pillars, another building, which is the house of guardianship, within bracket, the Arabic word for it, Darul Vilayah. Dar means house, ul means of, Vilayah means guardianship. Darul Vilayah, house of guardianship. And the center of interpretation, explanation and commentary of the holy text, in confirmation and complementation to the legislative arm, gradually shall be erected. He says the center of interpretations. He doesn't say the center of interpreters. No, the center of interpretation. Okay? But this building has been up. It's called something else right now. So what are we getting right now here? We're understanding that Shawqi Effendi did not choose a person after himself to succeed because it was not needed. Everything was done, basically, fundamentally. So he's the only infallible guardian of the cause of God. But he talks about future guardians, which we know there are 24 of them in the Some Answered Questions, which we know they're called also guardians and also elders. We found out, I just explained for you, their job is interpretations, but their station is not like Abdu'l Baha. What to interpret a lot of things, including what is the relationship of Universal Laws of Justice to Abdu'l Baha and to Baha'u'llah. And where are they going to be? In a third building that is just recently built in the Universal House of Justice at the Holy Land. Now the matter is solved. Democracy is achieved, which is not just mere election. It's election of 2 different bodies that they interact with each other, like Republican and Democrat, like Senate and House of Commons. One is the Universal House of Justice, in the name of Baha, B-A-H-A, means 9 numerically. There are 9 men there. And Baha'u'llah strictly says no woman can be there. That's Abdu'l Baha. Why? He says just like a sun in the middle of the sky, you will see the meaning of it later on. So, then he says there has to be in the name of Bab, B-A-B, B numerically 2, A is 1, Bab means 5. In the name of Bab, there has to be a house of guardianship. It's called Darul Vilayah, which 5 women have to be elected in it. Election. Their job is interpretation, like Senate. So, what does that mean? Universal House of Justice tomorrow wants to elect, make a new rule whether smoking is forbidden or not. Well, the Baha'is have been told by Shawqi Effendi to watch for that the Universal House of Justice does not enact something against the faith. So it creates an anarchy, because a lot of people say, hey, the decision of Universal House of Justice is outside of the faith. How do we stop this anarchy? This is why the Universal House of Justice sends the issue to the Universal House of Guardianship. Universal House of Guardianship acts based on the principles of the Baha'i Faith, which says religion has to be according to science and logic. They have all the scientists working with them. They find out whether smoking is bad for mankind, can be set aside, and all the implications of it. They full study of it. So they bring their authenticated interpretations, because that's their job. This is the center. To the Universal House of Justice. Based on that interpretation, Universal House of Justice makes it a law. It says, forbidden now, or not. On the other hand, if Universal House of Justice enacted the law, they need Universal House of Guardianship to get approval that they are not going outside of the faith. So they need each other, like mother and father. And none of them can interfere with each other, because one is interpreting, one is legislating. So why should be there women? Because Abdu'l Baha says, if you look at the Baha'i emblem, there are two stars. And he says one of them is Adam, one of them is Eve. Adam numerically is ADM in Persian, which means 45. And Eve, numerically in Persian or in Arabic, is Hawa, HVA, which is 5. Okay? So, Baha is 9, but 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 4 plus 5, 5 plus 6, 6 plus 7, 7 plus 8, 8 plus 9 becomes 45. So Baha, which is 9, if added becomes 45 Adam, equals to Adam. Bob, however, which is 5, if added becomes the number of Eve. Is a reference, indication of two forces. Eve, as I'm going to explain later on, is not woman, as some people they think. Is the person, first believer of the Prophet of God. It's like Bob and Baha'u'llah. It's like John the Baptist and Jesus Christ. It's like Moses and Aaron. It's like Muhammad and Ali. So there was an Adam and Eve. Okay? So, representing Adam, which is Baha, male, 9 male. Representing Eve, female force, 5 women. That's what the Elder of God interpreted. It is strictly not written in the writing of Shoghi Effendi whether these numbers have to be women. This is the interpretations of the Elders of God. It serves the purpose. So there's no questions, as some people they think that women have to go in Universal House of Justice. It's strictly forbidden. Shoghi Effendi says, Abdu'l Baha said that no. But the reason is that they will be in the House of Guardianship, but it has to be by elections. Elders of God are here to formulate this so the Baha'is they can take it and elect the Universal House of Guardianship. Just as like hands of the cause, they created the circumstances for elections of the Universal House of Justice. They themselves could not be the member of the Universal House of Justice. So elders are not the member of the Universal House of Guardianship. They're not. They're just facilitating it to get to that point. Now, final point. Although the member of Universal House of Justice, they legislate law which is infallible, but individually they're not called prophet of God. No. We don't call them prophet of God. Collectively, they do it. They carry the responsibility, but they're not called themselves prophet of God. So, as the member of the Universal House of Guardianship, individually they should not be called interpreters or guardians. No. Collectively, however, they can interpret, because it is said they are the center of interpretation. They can interpret the writing without being called interpreter. Just as the member of Universal House of Justice in their legislation cannot revoke and change and cancel the law of Baha'u'llah, member of the Universal House of Guardianship also, they interpret, but they cannot abrogate the interpretations of Shoghi Effendi and Abdu'l Baha. Within those interpretations, they continue. If somebody is fair and look for fairness, answer is very clear. So, We wrote this letter to Universal House of Justice. I wrote a letter at around 1994 to Universal House of Justice to explain the situation. Ooh, I was excommunicated. Actually, no letter was written to me. The letter was sent to some consular, and consular had somebody else. I put that letter in the Persian website, Persian section of website. Get a Persian to interpret. The question of this Mr. Consular is ridiculous questions. He tells me that if you are one of the imam, you don't need the Universal House of Justice. And are you claiming that you are inspired by God as well? The fellow, I don't know, how did he call me imam? Because we don't have the word imam in the Baha'i Faith. I said, which letter are you reading to think that I said that I'm an imam? And who told you that? Being an elder or anybody, the person does not need Universal House of Justice or can get inspiration by God like Baha'u'llah. How did you come up to this conclusion? Such questions, ridiculous questions asking. Anyways, I came down. Lisa was with me. Lisa had a strange dream. She's a Ukrainian descent, Canadian born. She said, I had a dream, Abbas, that me and you have a baby in Toronto, and all the people in Canada are watching that baby and they love it. I said, Lisa, I had kids from previous marriage, I'm not going to have children. But you said Toronto, we're going to go to Toronto. I was scared of Toronto, in Prince George. We came in Toronto, and one day I was in a bookstore, and I saw this gentleman, an older guy. He brought some other stuff. We ended up talking about Baha'i Faith, la 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 la. And he read my writing, my poetry. He said, oh, I respect you so much. I love your writing, but I do not believe that you should put emphasis too much on Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah is dead. He's gone. No, it is you. And tomorrow is another one. Why are you bringing these holy things to the people? We're all holy. I said, my dear friend, I cannot say his name. He's told me that I never bring his name. I told him, listen, you're wrong here, and I don't have time to explain it to you. I did it many times. He said, you know, since you're so sincere in your belief to Baha'u'llah, I'm not a Baha'i, he said. Could you ask Baha'u'llah to come in my vision and tell me that you are an elder? I believe it. I told him the Baha'u'llah that I know, I would be not daring to asking him these questions. Because if it is necessary, he would. I'm not like a little child to go to him, tell him, daddy, daddy, do this, do that. I don't do that. And I cannot ask this kind of ridiculous questions that you're asking. You have a mind, you have to see it. So we broke up, basically. And I just bought this house that I'm talking to you in there. He called me, he said, oh, I had a very strange vision and a dream. I have to talk to you. Tell him, all right, I'm in the middle of the work, but I'm willing to listen. Go ahead. He said, I had a vision that I'm in a grassland and certain people are coming off the ground, which seems there had to be stairs or something from underground. And they have a coffin on their head, shoulder they're bringing, black, wearing black. And I asked him, who's this coffin? They said, coffin belonged to Abbas, he's dead. I said, oh my God, he was a young fellow. He was telling us if we don't believe we're going to die in 2005. How did he die? Please, let me see his face once. They said, no, he's dead. We can't let you to do this, but we're going to put him in the grave. So we're going to take the coffin right out and you can have another look if you like to. I went along, they dig the land, I put the coffin down. I felt such a pain, he said, in my heart. I said, there's nobody even to pray for this man. And he's such a genuine Baha'i. And he says, as soon as I said, I turned back and I saw Baha'u'llah. He exactly said, a short man with broad shoulder and penetrating eyes. And to me, I just totally lost myself. I knew he's Baha'u'llah. He said, I said to him, Master, sir, this Abbas was a young fellow. It was such a pity he died so early. He said, Baha'u'llah told me that, no, he is not a young man. He is an elder. Look. And then he put it in his hand like that. The top of the coffin went away. And there you were. You had a beard, he said. A little beard, and your face, totally you were alive. he said to Abbas, it's the time now, get up. You got up of the coffin and prostrate in front of Baha'u'llah, and then you started going, and all the Baha'is that came to bury you, they followed you. And he was going at the end, putting his hand behind his back and walking. And I was along with him. I asked him, Baha'u'llah, Master, why are you at the end of the processions? You're the Master. He said, no, we are the, how do I translate it in English? We are watching from behind, like a caravan, you know, that we look at the end of the caravan to watch everything goes well. He got up. This man was an atheist whose wife was a Baha'i, that he would not let his children to go to the Baha'i class in Iran, in Shiraz, never in his life. He was such a, you know, prejudice about Baha'i faith. But, I mean, about all the religion. And he got divorced from his wife. He really didn't like Baha'is. Now, a very, very brilliant man. I'm not going to explain too much about him. Extremely brilliant individual. You know, he got even the Medal of Honor by the Americans Army. He was that bright at the time of Shah, a long time ago. So, he said that, now I believe you're an elder. And there you go. He calls the National Spiritual Assembly of Canada in Leslie Street right in Toronto, with Ayatollah Rouhani, I don't know, one of the secretaries on. He tells him, come here, I have to talk to you. He brings him right in Younger Street, and I talk to him and tells him that I had a vision of this man, I've read his poetry, he is the elder of God. Why are you against him? He's your friend. Don't call him infidel. Don't call him enemy of Baha'u'llah. He's in love with Baha'u'llah. How could he be enemy? He's not against Universal House of Justice or a local assembly or anything. He just says there are something else to be done. Not what is done is wrong. What is done had to be done. It's not over. It's another thing. And then, why are you then, because of his opinion, call him this? And anyways, they didn't listen to him. And there was another guy who was a Sunni Muslim descent, and strange enough, anyways, we saw him. He was also a huge individual as far as character and knowledge and experience concerns. He was actually working in a palace with the Shah, you know, of Iran. Huge man, okay? So he had this dream that Baha'u'llah gave him he told me, some tablet, a Baha'u'llah tablet, gave it to him, and I told him, this is who you are. You're the elder of God. And they said, yes, we are. And we believe you are too. What do we do? You can't make people to do something like that, especially at such an old age. They came down, we went to the lawyer, and they signed right on the bottom that they are the elder of God, and this is the institution of guardianship. In 2002, it was formed, letter was sent to Universal House of Justice. They were not registered Baha'is. I was spiritually excommunicated in a letter that no one is allowed to talk to me, including my son, including my daughter, my family, and if they talk to me, they will be cast off too. Is this fair to you guys? That to do somebody who's talking like this? Anyways, there are people, they say that, what institution? We have already Universal House of Justice. What this institution is going to do? And I have an answer for them. This answer comes again from the word of Shawi Effendi. Among my paper, let me find it. Okay. This is on the page, World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 148. My dear friend, this is the writing of Shawi Effendi, infallible guardian of the cause of God. Quote, without such an institution, the integrity of the faith will be imperiled. There is no faith, he says. And the stability of the entire fabric would be gravely endangered. Its prestige would suffer. The means required to enable it to take a long and uninterrupted view over a series of generations would be completely lacking. And the most important point, he says here, quote, continuation, and the necessary guidance to define the sphere of the legislative actions of its elected representative would be totally withdrawn. Without this institution, Universal House of Justice cannot act. It will be a dysfunctional institution. So what do you want, Baha'is? If you don't want institution of guardianship, there is no Baha'i Faith. So you have to accept the institution of guardianship. And I'm going to the final point. Somebody from USA called, must have been a big guy, very solemnly as was speaking. He said, I have read what you have said in your website, because I was by the order of the institution, I was advertising in Persian newspaper about these issues to the Baha'is. And he called, he said, I have read the book, your argument is very sound, there's only one problem is there. I told him, what's the problem? He said, how do I know you're an elder? I'm just an ordinary man. I have no means, no criteria to find out if you are an elder of God. Anybody can say that. How? How do I know it? Do you have any answer to that? I told him, indeed, it's a very good question. I told him that, do you believe in Universal House of Justice presently right now, that it is infallible and you have to follow? He said, yes. I told him a fellow, Joe citizen, comes on and finds mistakes in the Universal House of Justice. He said, well, hold it. To say Universal House of Justice makes mistake, and right there you're outside of the Baha'i Faith, because that's impossible. I told him, well, you have a brain, isn't it? Baha'i Faith, you have to investigate the truth. You have a brain, I'm not there, you're there, and you can see, oh yeah, there's a mistake. Big one, not a little one. What do you do? He said, a person who finds a mistake like that must be the next prophet of God. I told him, well, this guy, Joe Citizen, says, I'm not a prophet of God, I'm just an elder. If he can find mistakes in the Universal House of Justice, don't you think he's higher than Universal House of Justice in the faculty of understanding and being a specialist in the matter of the faith? Not that he's a person for the people to follow him personally, no, but his word, what he says, doesn't it make him higher than Universal House of Justice? He's quiet. He says, what is the occasion anyways? I told him, Universal House of Justice says the interpretations of the Shoghi Effendi is the statement of truth that cannot be varied. Universal House of Justice, you can't change the writing of Shoghi Effendi because it's infallible. When they say that, they go change the Darul Vilayah, the House of Guardianship, and they make it the House of Research and Study, and reducing its power, which is standing in complementation and confirmation to Universal House of Justice, they make it a House of Research, a Committee of Research and Study of the Faith, something that's subservient and obedient to Universal House of Justice. Whereas these two institutions, they run parallel. One of them cannot read the World Order of Baha'u'llah, Baha'i dispensation, you'll find out this institution, one cannot infringe upon the right of the other one. Shoghi Effendi clearly says, if the statement of Universal House of Justice, according to them, if you can't change the writing of Shoghi Effendi, when you say that you can't change it and then you change it, what do I think of you? Then you don't know what you're doing. You're not even aware of what you're doing. A Councillor Qadirian, Councillor of Universal House of Justice, he talked to me, never I received any letter from Universal House of Justice. He said that they have repudiated your belief and they say you are fallacious and you're wrong and this and that. I told him, how so? They said, you're saying there are 5 elders. There had to be only 4 elders. I said, oh, how? He said, well, I'm asking them to send you an answer. They didn't send me an answer, they sent it to him, and the answer is as follows. Bob and 18 letters of living makes 19 elders, but Abdu'l Baha also elected another person. His name is Abdu'l, the cousin of the Bab, who built the first Baha'i temple in Turkmenistan, Ashgabat, and Abdu'l Baha calls him one of the elders. They said, okay, 19 there, and this is 20, so there has to be only 4 elders remain. Why do you say 5? I told him, holy smoke, you guys can't see this? He said, what don't we see? I told him, I just read it to you, that Shoghi Effendi says, which is after Abdu'l Baha. And whatever he says, that is the document. It overrides previous writings. This is the law in the Baha'i Faith. He says there are 5 others who will come in future. 5, not 4. They said, oh yeah, about that one? Shoghi Effendi didn't want to let the Baha'is in the West to know that you're Canadian, American. He didn't want you to know that the guy who built the Baha'i temple in Russia, not the Russia, Bolshevik Russia, Russia at the time of Tsar. The guy who built the temple, he didn't want to let you know that he's one of the elders. I said, Lord, this is interpretation, and that is not what Universal House of Justice is supposed to do. You're saying the 5 of Shoghi Effendi means 4, because he just didn't want to let the people of the West. Why would he discriminate against the people of the West? That doesn't want to tell them about the existence of another elder. What significance is in that? But I told him, my dear friend, the matter is deeper than what you know. You have to go to my website, www.5elders.com. I have written a book, a look at the Baha'i Faith and in Universal House of Guardianship, to see this for yourself. One of the followers of the Bab, I told you that he had 18, with him himself becomes 19. One of them actually faltered. He left Baha'i Faith. He joined the arch enemy of Baha'u'llah, Azal. They poisoned Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah calls him, his name was Hadi, beginning with H. He says, whenever you see that H, tells him, oh H of the hell, you're happy, and the Bab is crying from your act. He calls him the infidel. I completely was cast off by Baha'u'llah. I said, guys, of those 18, one was cast off to hell by Baha'u'llah. And the new one that you think is the 20th one is replacing one of them. They said, no, you can't. I said, if Hadi Qazvini also is an elder in your eyes, who is the arch enemy of Baha'u'llah? Who's a great covenant breaker? Right at the end of the tablets of the son of the wolf, his name is there too, he's bringing it up. If you think this enemy of Baha'u'llah is also an elder, it's like exactly putting the feces from the toilet besides the plate of the food and tell people to eat. Because this is that bad. It's exactly to say the guy, the Judas, is one of the disciples of Christ. He's the enemy of Christ. How could he be also a disciple? Disciples, they knew him, they kicked him out, and Timothy came after him. In this case, Abdu'l Baha saw that this man is gone. He replaced him with another person. But you guys don't see it. So there again I said, you're wrong. You're wrong because you're saying that the writing of Shoghi Effendi, who says it is 5, you're saying that 5 means 4. And interpreting, which is not your responsibility. And worst of all, for this kind of a basic argument, you call me infidel. What have I done to be called infidels? Gosh. So I said to that individual on the phone, this is 2 of them, but there's a lot more. has anybody that you ever know have come to find out the mistakes of the universal laws of justice? Nobody. God purposely left his elders behind, because always this happened in the religion of the past. He knew. He's not going to give the reign of the world in the hand of the universal laws of justice if they cannot even see the logic of just a simple, dismal soul called Abbas. They can't see even his logic, which is not my word, for God's sake. It's all the writing that's in the writing. Even as a friend of mine said, the mayor of Guelph would not kill you. A person like you served the Baha'i Faith in so many years. Vatican would not do that to his followers. Ayatollah Khomeini will not kill devout believers like that. But you guys shun me down and tell me that I'm not even, I'm not even a Baha'i. Never mind a Baha'i. I'm just a completely enemy of the faith. I was looking at very nice writing of Shoghi Effendi. Let's read that one too, about the human rights, that it seems these institutions, they don't understand it at all. Well, I guess I cannot find it. I did bring it here. But in the Baha'i administration, he says the cardinal, the most important things in the Baha'i Faith is that human right. If we cannot even see that, if you cannot see that, read it. It's in the Baha'i administrations. About the human right is very, very important what he says. Unfortunately, Baha'is don't. So, why am I an elder? Because I, for the first time, solved this issue of the matter of the successorship to the Shoghi Effendi and guardianship in the Baha'i Faith, which brings the women in power, which is the question today. In the Bible, in Daniel, it says 1,260. Everyone who reads the unanswered questions, they know that. 1,260, reference to the coming of the Bab. Then it says 1279, reference to the coming of Baha'u'llah, 19 years after. Then it says, good for those who reach to 1335. They ask Abdu'l, what is that? He says it's solar years, not lunar years. They ask him, what is that? He says 100 years passed from the inceptions of the Baha'i, of the faith, of coming of Baha'u'llah and this and that. So these guys, they say that, okay, Baha'u'llah died 1863, 100 years after, Universal House of Justice formed. But 1963 is not equal to 1335 of the Persian calendar. 1335 is 1956. It's not 1963. They're all puzzled. What does that mean? 1335 is my birth date. In my ID, it says 1337, but in fact it's 1335. All the people, my relative in Vancouver, they know it. In Iran, my parents, they didn't want to send me to the army. That was the custom those days. They would not report my birth date till I was like 2 years old. So when I go to army, I'm not 18, I'm 20. At least I'm strong to carry the task. So they would not report. Otherwise, I was born 1335. And they say, how do you say that? It is because Baha'u'llah quit the prophethood completely. He said, I'm not no longer a prophet, because there were so many people claiming things. He just left all the Baha'is, Babis actually those days, and he went to the mountain of Sulaymaniyah right now in Iraq. No one knew where he is, even Abdu'l, his son. One day somehow his writing was found, and they knew, because he changed his name. He called himself Darwish Muhammad, and he said that I swear to one true God, which I am his representative, I will never ever come back to this. But he said that decision, God had decided differently, and I had to follow. That is the day he came. It wasn't 1335, it was 1235. From that day, 100 years, when the Prophet Baha'u'llah resumed and accepted his mission, because he quit. That day, when he came back, resumed. From that day, 100 years after that, I was born. And just 1 year before Shoghi ended dies. Okay? There are many, many things the Baha'is, they don't know. I cannot. I'm not going to go into that too much. This is getting too long. So, finally, those who are listening to me, what do you want from me? Or other way around, what do I want from you? You're asking me. What's our order? There's no order. What we want is this. What we think is correct. You be the judge of it. That we have to keep this unity. 15 years passed. First I spoke to my friend. They all faltered. Those who knew me long, they swore that I am connected to God. But they faltered. One of them may come back. Then I brought the matter among the Persian Baha'is. 15 years passed. Nothing I received from them. Well, 35,000 of them, they went into the website. A lot of them are out there. Now there's no response from this Universal House of Justice and Baha'is, and I see the time is coming to the end. I have to bring the matter to the Canadians and to the Americans and to the Western and non-Persian Baha'is all over the world to know the truth. What we think as elders, we should not go and create another institutions, another groups. The institution is made. We are there already. But we do not want to divide the Baha'is. Because the moment you create these divisions, it's just, God knows where it's going. So how do we win? The mechanism is embedded in the Baha'i Faith. If you hear these things and you're convinced that we're right, and if you're a Baha'i, do not talk about it to other Baha'is. Don't say that you listened to this conversation or you learned it. But gradually try to talk to them, to see what they think. Use the wisdom, slowly. And those who are not Baha'is and they're listening and to investigate this, join the Baha'i Faith through the local spiritual assembly of the city you are, through the national spiritual assembly of the country you are, and do not accept no other administration except the present one. Consists of local, national, and the Universal House of Justice in Israel that was built by the hands of the God. No other Universal House of Justice or administration is acceptable to us. Only what's there right now. You join them, but do not cause divisions. Gradually again, talk to the other Baha'is. If your effort is sincere and wise, gradually the Baha'is within themselves, they evolve and they understand as the time goes. You can't have a faith where 9 men, they can legislate laws and no women have no right in it. By this, I do not want that anybody to come and create an invention what to do. No, just look at the solution that's in the writing of the cause of God itself. We do not add to the faith. Shoghi Effendi says, in the hands of in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, I'm paraphrasing, there's any system that does not follow the direct order in the writing, wants to go a little less than that, he says it will not achieve nothing. Maybe lesser peace, but that's all he says. They'll never get where God wants them to do. So finally, we're expecting from the viewer, from the listeners, from the audience, that join the Baha'i Faith, become their member. But don't be a mole, you're not a spy. You have to go teach your brothers and your sister what the fact is. Nicely, slowly, and gradually. Don't yell and don't scream and don't talk, because I did that just like a 2x4 on the saw. You know what happens? Psh, I got shredded. So, should we blame Universal House of Justice? Not really. Why? Because they're elected by us. They are reflections of how much we are. So we have to change if we think the situation is wrong. Change is to understand the faith of God. Go to our website, www.5elders.com. There's one book there, and all these videos, 200, 300 of them, is going to come in there, which is the reconstructions of the Baha'i Faith. I will show you who the Elder of God is and what is his infinite knowledge and understanding. You be the judge of it if you think I am the Elder of God. But no other elders wants to come even to talk. They say there's no use. You're already gone there. So, and if you have questions, 1-800-607-6940. Name is Abbas. You call, it's connected. If I'm not home, it's connected to my cell phone. We have come to solve the problem. And our solution, our Baha'i revolution, is not fight and divisions and none of that. It's educations. You're dealing with a man whose leg was broken and was painful at the time. He learned to go in a lame way, walk. Now he's learned to walk like this. Now you're telling them, listen, you're lame, I'm a doctor, I want to fix this. We have to straighten it up. Of course he doesn't want to come to the surgery room. What do you have to do? You have to do a surgery to straighten his leg. But you can't kill the patient. That's what Baha'u'llah told me. Don't kill the patient. Just fix it. You have to talk to him. That if it goes continue, you'll die under this. Without such institution, the entire fabric of the cause of God will be imperiled, disintegrated, gone. We can't let that happen. And Abdu'l says, this religion and this covenant is not like the covenant of the past. It's different. Finally, at the end, I have to tell you that what happens after the elders, they died. Elders, they come and go. 5 of them only. Once they died, there's no more elders. But what will happen is this. There is 3 types of guardianship. The infallible guardianship, that was Showi Effendi, gone, and that's it. There's no other one. Universal House of Justice interpreted, there was nobody for Showi Effendi to elect and choose. This is a wrong way to go about it. If it had to be one, their God would have made another one. It's not the fact that there was no branch or no proper person. That's why Showi's hand was locked and closed. He couldn't do it. His hand was tied up. He was tied up. There was nobody. This is not the reason of that he had no successor. There was no successor needed. He did all the salient features of the faith. The fundamentals were done. Then he talks about, this is the infallible guardianship. Showi Effendi is the one gone. Then there is a special guardianship, the guardianship of these 5 elders. They can go, gone too. Then comes general guardianship. People often ask me that, how is this possible? 9 people get elected. There could be anybody, grocery man, God knows, anybody. And they just 9 goes there and God inspires them. It just doesn't seem logical. They're right. That is not how the inspiration goes to the Universal House of Justice. Universal House of Justice gets inspired in a different way. So, let's read this. A lady was asking a question from Showi Effendi, and this is in Light of Guidance, page 310. Quote, it says, accepting of the day that will not be followed by the night. This statement, accepting of the day that will not be followed by night, is the statement of Abdu'l in his Will and Testament. He says, the guidance of God continuously comes into the Baha'i Faith, from God, from Baha'u'llah to us. This is not a day, and there will be no night. There won't be a day that there is nobody. Always there is somebody. Right there, it says that. How would these guys then, they say there is no guardian? Accepting, with a quotation, of the day that will not be followed by night, he feels, that is Showi Effendi, he feels that if, ponders more deeply about the fundamentals of the divine revelation, he's talking to this woman, she will also come to understand the guardianship. Once the mind and the heart have grasped the fact that God guides man through a mouthpiece, a human being, a prophet, infallible and unerring, it's only a logical projection of this acceptance to also accept the station of Abdu'l and the guardians. I have to interpret this. He says that if you believe God talks through Baha'u'llah to us, then you have to understand Baha'u'llah also talks through Abdu'l and guardians to us. The guardians are the evidence of the maturity of mankind, that at long last men have progressed to the maturity of progress to the point of having one world and of needing one world management for human affairs. And the spiritual realm, they also have reached a point where God could live in human hand, within bracket, i.e. the guardians, guided directly by the Bab and Baha'u'llah, as the master, which means Abdu'l Baha, stated in his will the affair of his faith for this dispensation. This is what it means by this is the day which will not be followed by the night. In this dispensation, divine guidance flows unto us in this world after the Prophet ascensions through first the master, which is Abdu'l Baha, and then the guardians. If a person can accept Baha'u'llah's function, it should not present any difficulty to them to also accept what he has ordained divinely guided individual in a matter pertaining to his faith. Show if and they tell us. If God speaks to Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah comes talk to us, which makes sense. How else God would talk to us? You know, that's our language, we're human. So he chose a human to talk to us. It says after Baha'u'llah passed away to Abha kingdom, he would choose people to talk to us in human hand. He says guardians. So in the Baha'i Faith forever, there won't be any day that there's no guardian. There will be many guardians, in fact, at one time. They are the one that they bring their opinions and their ideas and discoveries. Like there was in Islam, a lot of them. Like Rumi, like Sa'di, like Hafiz, like so many. And they send their finding to the Universal House of Guardianship and Universal House of Justice. They get the idea. This is how they get inspired. Through the guardians. Who Shoghi Effendi says, well, constantly comes after Abdu'l Baha'u'llah's ascension. Do not be baffled by their face, by their size, by who they are. God will choose the people you don't like. Most of the time this is the case. How many rumors are behind me? Some of these Baha'is are talking about. It's just unbelievable. They are shunning me, they are cursing me because I live with Lisa, the girl who was, God knows, everything in the world that she has done. Right now she's a gem. You guys come and see her, see for yourself how much she's changed. I went to the office of the National Spiritual Assembly of Canada. I said, I want to marry her. I'm just living with her in a common law because you're taking my card. I'm a Baha'i. I'm not against the Baha'i Faith. Keep my card back. And Ayatollah Rouhani said, you're such a good guy. You're a fair guy. I told him I've written a letter to Universal House of Justice. It's between me and them. Whatever they say, I'm not told them that I'm going to oppose them. Whatever they want to do. Meantime, I'm not talking to anybody else. You guys bringing the matter up yourself. I haven't spoken to anybody. So can you give me the card back and can marry? They said no. I have to go see a psychiatrist, they said, for what I say. I said, well, in Canada, I have to go to talk to my doctor if I tell him that I need psychological help. He says, why? And I explain him what I said to you right now. He would not find me crazy. How would he send me to a specialist? And if I'm going to a specialist, what am I going to tell him? These things? Do you think because of my opinion and ideas I just brought, I'm crazy? Think about it, people, please. do not understand. I was just talking last night, he said, why the Baha'is are acting like this? I told him Baha'i Faith is like a television. Religions of the before, they were like shovel. If a shovel breaks, part of it could be used. The handle could be used like a baton, something. But Baha'i Faith is like a television. If something breaks, the TV doesn't work. You can't see nothing. And the whole thing is useless. It's complicated. It's sensitive things. When part of the Baha'i Faith, such as the institution of guardianship, is not around, everything will crumble. Guys, please don't be disappointed. Abdu'l says that, we swear to God, he says, that I guarantee that this covenant is not like the religion of the past. It will not be broken. This is why God has left 5 elders behind. He knew these things happen. Baha'u'llah brought me to fix things up for you, to tell you what's going on. And I've given you everything that's in the writing, really, nothing of my own. My own writing word comes after this, that I'm going to be starting to talk about it, which is reconstruction of the Baha'i Faith from A to Z. I have everything to say. You be the judge of it. May Baha'u'llah be with you. God bless you. Thank you, Canadian, that you brought me in Canada. What says that the future of Canada is glorious, spiritually and economically. It says the North Americans are the inheritors of the concords on high, because the elders are appearing amongst you. This is a gift. Do not be offended by it. And do not go into the personal life of me or others. We're just a mailman. We bring you the message. Look at the message. Don't look at our personalities. We're not claiming anybody anything bigger than anything. Shoghi Effendi warned you, we could be infinitely inferior than Abdu'l. None of you, I guarantee, you're not infinitely inferior, but we could be. Therefore, see if what we say is right. If it is right, go for it. Leave us alone. Okay? Thank you very much. So long.